Hello and welcome. Let's get our app ready to communicate with our server. We haven't built our server yet, but we will work on the front end to get that ready. Now there's something I want to fix about the login here. When you start typing, everything looks great, but as we move away, our padding slips and it moves all the way to the left. So if you could go to your SCSS and then the auth.scss, we're going to simplify this file completely. Instead of having a placeholder with padding left and a focus with padding left, we'll get rid of both of those. So we'll get rid of this one, and then I'm just going to copy this one and get rid of it and just put that in the input itself. Now we can get rid of placeholder, save that up. And let's make sure we're running yarn run SCSS, save that again. And now we can take a look. Yeah, now it's in the right spot. That's what we're looking for. The same thing's happening in our search. So let's quickly fix that as well. That'll be in search. Head down to placeholder over here. We have padding left of 4 rem font size. Okay, so it's going to be the padding left again. We have it in 2 places. We'll get rid of it here. We'll copy it and get rid of it here. We'll move it into search itself. Save that, and now search should work. Yes, it does. Okay, great. Let's get started. We're going to go to src components and into our authenticate right here. Not the auth component, but authenticate, because we want to keep track of some state. And we're going to keep track of state with use state for now. The 2 pieces of state that we need are the email and the password. So we'll make email, set that equal to use state, and it'll start off as an empty string. Now the same thing will happen with password. So password, comma, set password, and set that equal to use state, again as an empty string. Now we're going to make some functions for these. We'll have a const called update email, make it a fat arrow function that takes in e, that's the event. Inside of there, all we're going to do is set email and then pass e.target.value. Now we're going to do the same exact thing with the password. So this will be update password, then set password, e.target.value. Now head down to your inputs. Let's hook this up. We have our input right here. The type is text. It should be email. Just make that quick change from type text to type email. After that, we're going to have an on change, and that is going to push e. And then update, and this is the email, right? Yep, update email, and pass in that e. So that's the event that we're passing. We're going to do the same exact thing in the next input, except it'll be update password. And now let's make sure this is working with our state. So right up here, I'm going to console.log email, comma, password. Head into your app and let's bring up the console here and type something in. So just a few letters. They're all working and they're going away. Let's do the same thing with the password. Perfect. So we are keeping track of state here without any problems at all. Now we can keep track of the values that we need in order to authenticate or register a user. But we need to be able to send it out to our API. So let's work on that next. I'm going to just exit out of this for right now. Yarn add Axios. We're going to use Axios to do all of our API calls. This will be a utility for us, so let's make a new src folder called util. Inside of util, we're just going to have one file for now, just api.js, and this is how we're going to communicate with our API using Axios. So import Axios from Axios, and then export default axios.create. So let's set some values up for Axios that we want to use every single time. The base URL, that will be HTTP, and then it'll be localhost. And I'm going to use localhost 5000, so I suggest you do that as well. We're going to label our API. We're going to label our version 1 or V1. I'll use V1. Now, set up with credentials, because we will need to do credentialing. We're going to pass as a cookie our JSON Web Token. So we need this, and we're going to need to accept credentials by saying credentials true. Oh, I'm sorry, include, not true, include. Now save that up, and we have Axios set up. Now this base URL is the URL we're going to make all of our calls to. So when we actually make a call, maybe we'll want to make it to auth/signup, and all we'll have to write is auth/signup there. Let's set up one of those calls right now in our authenticate component. We'll make a function called onSubmit. So const onSubmit. It's an async function, so make sure you used async. It's going to take in e, because we're going to need to e.prevent default. We do not want the page to reload. And that's a function, so invoke it. And now we'll have a const body. So this will be the body of our post request that we're about to make. Inside here will be the email and the password. Next is the const options. Now inside of options, we're just going to set our headers. So headers and then content, oh, you know what, capital on that C there, content dash type and application slash JSON. And now we make our async call to the server we haven't built yet. So try const res, this will be the result of the call, is await, because we're an async function. We're waiting for the response of API.post, the post request that we make to the URL, which we also should define right up here rather than in a string here. I'm going to make a const called URL, and we'll just set that to /auth/signup. So our URL is set. The next thing we'll push over there is our body, which we did make already, and our options, which sets our headers. Let's console.log the response so we know what comes back from the server when we do make it. And we have our catch here, which will catch any errors, and console.log the error. I'm going to make a quick change to this function because I'm going to be using the onSubmit method. So I'm just going to call this submit so it doesn't get too confusing. As we move down, find the form right here. And in here, we're going to make a onSubmit method. So onSubmit, we're going to pass in E. We know it needs the event to prevent that default. And then it's going to go to submit, which takes E. Now you're thinking, what a great function. How are we ever going to test this? We don't have a server. Well, we're going to build it right now. So get out of anything that you're in your terminals and save everything up that you need to save. Now everything here, we're going to make a new folder called Frontend, and everything here is going in that folder. So you can just grab one, shift your way up, and move it all into Frontend, and click Move. Let's get anything that popped onto your screen off of your screen. We could definitely close this big node modules that opened itself up. And we could even close really the whole front end for right now. Let's get started on our server with yarn init. Now this will take us through what we want to call everything. I'll call it ecom version 1.0.0 description. We could just get through all of these. It's going to be index.js for the entry point, the repository URL we can set that later. And author, all of these, I'm just going to let this kind of make itself right now. And we have our package.json right here. I'm going to change my main to server.js. I'd like to name it server just so we don't have to look for index when we're looking for the server. So let's make server.js right here. Now let's install some packages to get our server working. So we will yarn add, and there's a few of them we need to put in here. Body-parser, concurrently, cores, express, and nodemon to get us started. So let's just add those to our project. So the first thing we'll do is use express to create our server. So const express equals require, and we need express. Let's also bring in the body parser. Set that equal to require body parser. And we'll also need cores, or cross-origin request, in order to connect here. So let's require cores. Let's make our server. So const app will equal express as a function. So express and invoke it. Now we have app to work with. App.enable. We're going to use, the first thing is going to be trust proxy, because we're going to be using some proxying. So trust proxy. And then let's set up our app.use, and we need the cross-origin support. So cores here. And we're going to set some options inside of cores. So just open it up and put inside of it some curly brackets so we could set these options. The first one will be origin. And the origin is going to be wherever you're hosting your React project, which should be at localhost 3000. So let's do that here. HTTP localhost 3000. And the only other thing we need is the credentials, and I want to set that to true. Next, we'll use our body parser, so app.use, and inside of there, body parser. Oh, I spelled this wrong. Let me change this to parser. That looks a lot better. So body parser dot JSON. We're going to be getting JSON from our front end, and we want to parse it. Now we'll just set our port, so const port will be equal to 5000. That's the port we are sending to, so that's the port we will use. Now app.listen. We'll put the port in first, and then a callback, which will print something to our console. Let's console.log, and inside of there, backticks server is running on port, and then we'll do the port. Save that up. Now let's see if this is built. I'm going to go ahead and save my package.json. Failed to save. There's a newer version. Let me get out of my package.json. Don't save. Back into it and change this back to server. That's what I didn't save. Okay, and now yarn start. And we can see our server is running on port 5000. So today we're going to make first contact with our server by putting in our first route. So underneath the body parser, make sure it's after the body parser, app.use, and we're going to define the route. The route will be /API /v1-auth. And I'm also going to write sign up. So if we hit auth sign up, we're going to pass it an async function that has a request and a response. And we'll explain this in just a moment. So we're going to try, and inside of here, I'm going to first console.log the request.body, and we defined the body in the front end, so we know what we should get back here, the email and the password. So let's deconstruct those. Email, password should equal request.body. And what is res? So res is going to be our response. So res.status will be the status number. Let's say 201 for created. .json will be the JSON that we send back. And inside of there, I want to send the email that we pulled out of the body here, and the password, which we also pulled out of the body. And let's also send an MSG, which will be a message sent from the server. So we know that this came back from our server. The next thing we have to do is a catch for an error. So err, and inside of there, we will just console.log error occurred. Save that up. I'm going to kill the server now with Command C. We'll get rid of it. I just want to write a script to run our server and our front end at the same time. So after dependencies, let's comma to scripts. And inside of scripts, we're going to have a front end, double quotes in these files, front end, and that will be npm run dev. That should actually just be npm start, and then we'll prefix it. We'll just write -- prefix front end. So it'll say run npm start after you go into the front end folder, which holds all of our front end. Let's define what to do with our server. So we'll have server, and this will be nodemon. So nodemon will relaunch your code every time you save. So we'll do nodemon server.js. And in order to run these at the same time, we'll finally use dev, like I wanted to before, and it will be concurrently, and then escape character, quotes npm run server, which we wrote right up here. And now escape character again. And after those quotes, another escape character, start the quotes again, npm run front end, escape character and quotes. Those escape characters and those quotes get a little confusing. I know they confuse me. Sometimes I write these poorly because of that. So that's pretty normal. And actually looking at this, there is a mistake. There's one more quote is what I need, and we can get rid of that comma. But we'll save that. Now we have our dev. Let's see if this runs for us. So yarn run dev. We have our server running, and now we should have our front end running if we have any luck. And it is working. Perfect. This looks great. We'll go to our login and see if we could send some information to our server. So first I will bring up the console. The console still has the ability to keep track of whatever we're writing here. So I'm going to say user at user.com, and the password, I'll just write password. Let's submit this and see what comes back. We have authenticate.js, and we have data coming back. It should say what we want it to say. It has an email. It has a message, which is sent from the server, and it has the password that we typed in. We just made first contact with our server, and now we could do so much more. So follow me to that next video where we could get started on some authentication. Great job, and keep coding.